Life with Susan Harf. I'm Rose Martin, and thanks for joining us for tips and advice on how we can live our very best life. I wonder what's on her mind today. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Rose, and hi to you. Very happy you're all with us. So today we are going to talk about how to leave the bad experience behind you.
Oh, that's good. And really leave it, not let it linger, and really
That's
let
right.
it go.
Yes.
I'm all in.
And I'm going to start out by telling you actually a personal story of a bad experience that I had with my husband. So we were coming home in the evening from being out of town, and we were driving on the highway. And the highway was a one-way highway. So there were several lanes, 4 lanes, and all of them are going in one direction.
Mm-hmm.
And out of nowhere, all of a sudden, and this is late in the evening, we see big lights coming toward us.
Oh, no.
So now someone is going in the wrong direction toward us. Fortunately, I was not driving. Talking and speaking is a much better asset that I have than driving.
Panic, yeah. Ooh.
Fortunately, I was not driving. My husband was, but he did not panic, but he swerved. So the first miracle was that no one was, the person that was on the right side of us swerved too and got away. So that was the first miracle, that they were able to do that, because it was a 4-lane highway.
Full of traffic.
Full of traffic, but everybody sort of saw this truck, it was a truck, coming and started to part. So my husband swerved all the way to the right. As he did that, the truck stopped and started coming toward us again, toward the right. My husband then swerved all the way from the farthest right lane into the farthest left lane. Second miracle, other people were able to get out of the way for him to do that. The truck started coming at us again, straight for us into the far left lane. So now it became apparent that this is on purpose. This person is not by omission, by not wanting to in the wrong lane. He wants to be doing what he's doing. So this went on again, another round. And then finally, he stopped in the middle of the lanes, and we stopped. And he then turned his entire truck around and backed up into us.
Oh, no.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
It was very, very scary. And to know that someone is trying to hurt you, trying to smash into your vehicle on purpose, is unfathomable. And besides, it was at night, and there was no light, and we're also at that moment thinking about all the other cars and what's happening. Okay. When we were done with the experience, a series of things happened. We pulled over to the side of the road. We had help from police, etc. We found out that this driver had smashed into somebody else prior to us. And then the worst was, we found out that at a truck stop nearby, he purposefully rammed his truck into a person who was walking from the building. And so compounding what happened to us, we were also very scared and worried for other people. At the conclusion of this episode, we were able to, believe it or not, our car still worked, even though he had hit us, and we were able to drive the car. As I think about it now, my mouth gets dry. I think about the anxiety of that moment. And after that occurred, about a month later, we went on the highway again, and I was frightened.
Oh, yeah, understandably so.
And we made the second trip a month later, but I was very anxious. I was tense the whole time. It was not pleasant. And then I realized that as
You got a leaf in your hair.
Thank you. I was starting to feel that way whenever I would get on a 4-lane highway. Even highways that aren't necessarily all going one way. I started
And not
feeling
those
that
same
way.
set of roads, but any highway.
Correct. And the anxiety started happening even before I would assess that's what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized then that this habitual sort of feeling was occurring, and I needed to think about it because I was not going to stop driving.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I thought about it, the more I realized, well, there have been many times beforehand that we were not hit by anyone, and there will be many times after that we will not be hit by someone. And so as I began to think through that, before I would get on the highway, I began to get less tense, and that's how it started. And then gradually I began to feel fine. It took time. But that experience led me to a whole other definition of bad experience. And what it led me to was thought about clients of mine who have habitual thoughts. And those habitual thoughts, I'm not really even just speaking about obsessive compulsive thoughts, because that's even a whole other direction. Obsessive compulsiveness is a whole other topic that we should talk about someday.
Yeah, we will.
But habitual thoughts, meaning whenever I see this certain person, I don't really like them. I'm not happy to see them. Whenever I go to this class, I know it's going to be boring. Whenever I go to this restaurant, I know the food's going to be fabulous or lousy. I started to think about that sometimes we prescribe our behavior, not just our thoughts, but our behavior relative to something that happened before. And many times it's something negative that happened. Because in actuality, if you're anticipating a great meal, that's not going to be a detriment to your day.
Right.
At Life Coaching, we talk about things that we need to get over, things that we want to cope with better. So this conversation is more about the times when we perseverate and think about matters that didn't really start today. They started a long time ago. And then I had a client who really taught me about this issue. This client is in a new marriage. And she came to me one time and said, I'm already sabotaging it. And I said, really? How so? And she said, well, my last husband only thought of himself. My new husband is not like that. He doesn't always think of himself. He thinks about me a lot. But when he does think of himself, like for instance, when he wants to watch football on TV and he doesn't want to watch what I want to watch, or he doesn't want to go furniture shopping with me, or I want him to get up early on Saturday morning so that we can go to the farmer's market, and he doesn't really want to go. In each of those instances, I start treating him the way I treated my former husband, my ex-husband, who was always thinking about himself. And what she can teach us is what she and I ended up talking about, which was when you act frustrated with your new husband based on what your ex used to do, that behavior that you're exhibiting with your husband now started a long time ago. That frustration that you feel over this one incident of wanting to watch football and not wanting to watch your show, that frustration that you're feeling, it began to be initiated not today when he turned on football. It initiated in the former marriage. And so when we can instead, conversely, let today be about today, have a fresh start this morning, not allow ourselves to belabor our thoughts that sometimes were from a different relationship even, a different boss, a different supervisor, a different supervisee, a different child, a different parent, a different relationship. When we can make it instead about today, right now.
How do you let those thoughts go, though, that are perseverating? And it seems like whether it be the accident being afraid or just something that's in your head that you just can't let go of. And no matter you go about the rest of your day, you go to work, you might go home, but there's just that lingering something, whether it's a relationship or a fight or
Yeah.
something unresolved. How do you let it go?
Well, there's two topics there. One topic is how do you let go of anger? And we're going to talk about that in another show. But the real answer to your question is how do you not bring the past into now? The very first thing you need to do is to recognize that you've done that. Because I guarantee you, when you have a reaction that seems a bit over the top or a bit extreme or a bit more frustrated than usual, or a reaction that is more of a reaction than this situation deserves, that is a hint to you that this didn't start now.
And the light bulb should go off then.
And the light bulb should go off then.
Like,
because
I'm reacting in a way, this doesn't make sense. There's something else.
And more often than not, it will happen when you have forgotten that this was the way you responded. It's not about the other person. This is your response. And so what we need to say to ourselves is, this doesn't have to be our habitual response. Just like when I get on the highway, my habitual response did not need to be anxiety anymore.
But you still remember it. Does it linger still, like a question in your mind, or is it truly put in a place and gone?
Here's how I remember it now. That is something that happened. It happened in 2020 over Thanksgiving. That happened then. And how fortunate am I that it's not happening now. So it's a decision. It's a decision that I make.
Yeah, a choice for your own head and your own mental health. You know, my own mental well-being, to put it in a place that it's not going to linger anymore to wherever it was 2 years ago or 20 years ago.
So,
right?
and yes, and if you, that's the first thing. And the second thing is, if you find yourself, you can feel it. If you find yourself having the same kind of feeling that you had in another relationship, in another work, in another job, in another situation, you can say to yourself, how fortunate am I? That's not my boss now. My boss now is someone that is not unreasonable. My boss is very reasonable. Yes, my former boss was unreasonable. My boss, my present boss, is not. So you give yourself that time, that space in between the feeling and the action. And I say to people a lot that I always believe it's a good idea to subordinate your feeling for your action. In other words, you can have a feeling. It does not mean you need to react according to that same belief system that is from the past.
I remember my mom used to always tell us, feelings aren't right or wrong. It's okay, you know, it's okay to have them, and then we'll deal with them, and we'll deal with what needs to happen. I think I love about your advice is the positive self-talk of, aren't I fortunate, or isn't this wonderful for me, that, and then you fill in the blank at the end.
Exactly, exactly, yes. My father, when I became a teenager, my father used to say a lot, it's not necessary. Dad, I'd like to go to the sleepover, it's not necessary. Dad, I'd like to go to the dance, not necessary. And then we'd have to get over it's not necessary into, well, this is why I want to go. I'd have to make my case.
Right.
And as you can imagine, I was good at making the case.
I'm sure you got to go wherever you wanted.
So the first time when I was in a conversation with my husband and I said something like, do you think we should get the shrimp today or tomorrow? And he said something like, it's not necessary. I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute. And he said, what's wrong, what's wrong? It was like a robotic, and I had to say, this isn't about it's not necessary, 15-year-old.
Right.
So, but we often ascribe those past feelings to the present, even when it is not appropriate. So That is what and you know it's not appropriate when you find yourself having an old reaction, what we call a habitual reaction.
Or that feeling inside, like you said, you can begin to feel the tremor, the stomach ache, or the butterflies,
Yeah.
whatever it's called, to think something's going on that doesn't seem like it applies to what I should be dealing or thinking about in this particular moment.
Exactly.
That's
Rose.
great advice. That's
Thank you.
great advice.
Thank you.
Today was amazing, right, with Susan, learning all about letting go and making some great choices and believing in ourselves. If you'd like to get in touch with Susan, please email her at reallife@blueridgepbs.org, and maybe your topic or idea will be on one of our other shows. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's go live our best life. Until next time.